The Spin-Off Podcast Network. Skinny are helping you show how smart you are with the 1Q quiz, an all-new, super challenging and super quick daily quiz built by the Spin-Off. Every Monday, Skinny are giving you the chance to prove you're smart with the Skinny Extra Credit question. Get it right, and you'll get the chance to score yourself some Skinny Extra mobile credit, so you can text, call, or even video call your group chat and gloat about how big your brain is. T's and C's apply.
The Fold is brought to you by O-Media, making brands unmissable and public spaces better across Aotearoa. Nau mai, hoki mai, kia The Fold e mihi nei, ko Duncan tōku ingoa. My guest this week is, he's coming back for a second time. It's Bailey Mackey. Man, I could probably do a whole intro just listing off the things he does, but the hat he's wearing today is that of the CEO of Pango Productions, which is his production company that aims to take Māori stories to the world. And the big thing that they just did was run Super Saturday's Vaxathon, which, and I wrote about this earlier in the week. I thought that Super Saturday and the Vaxathon is almost like a microcosm of it, was one of the most inspiring and creative things that I've seen out of this country in a while. And it represented the very best of all of us. You know, it had business and community groups and government and media, everyone kind of putting aside their normal differences and playing nicely together with a big goal to get as many people vaccinated as possible, particularly Māori and Pacific rangatahi, and you'll hear Bailey speak to that. And I guess I feel like it contains lessons for us, but also just that should be marveled at as a piece of ingenuity, and as Bailey talks about, the timeline that this thing was assembled was completely crazy. It broke every kind of sacred rule of television in terms of the talent and going out on multiple networks and so on. And so I wanted to have him come on and tell that story, which he does here today. When this goes up, it'll be exactly a week since it happened, which is about as long as he had to organise it. It's just an extraordinary thing, and Bailey tells it in a very entertaining way. Before we get into it, I want to thank again Vodafone for bringing you The Fold. They power the Spin-Off. Everything that we do operates on Vodafone's network technology, and I strongly recommend it if you are looking for anything internet. Go to vodafone.co.nz. This is Bailey Mackey on The Fold. Tēnā koe, Bailey, and welcome to The Fold.
Good to be back, Duncan. I think it's just we only ever do these during COVID. So clearly I'm the COVID fallback guy, because I think the last time I did one I just got voted onto the board of New Zealand Rugby and we're deep in COVID. So
that's right. That's right. I think it was like maybe April of last year, and here we are again. But hopefully we're recording this an hour before the 10 o'clock announcement of the traffic light system, which is hopefully. Then we were at the start of this thing. Hopefully we're now at the beginnings of the map out, which essentially is the kind of subject of this conversation. I think we've had a pretty rough old run of it since Delta broke out. And at times it's felt like the communication side of it, which was so good and clear at the start of the outbreak, kind of got lost, and the whole country was getting a bit rancorous, which I understand. But then Super Saturday happened, and right at its heart, the Vaxathon, which you ran. Firstly, how are you doing? Like, it must have been one of the most exhausting operations to pull together.
Yeah, I'm still tired. So what are we? We're Friday after last Saturday, so still tired. And haven't really kind of had an opportunity for it all to sink in. And, have obviously, heard a lot of discourse about it, mostly positive. So look, I think proud but tired is probably the biggie.
That seems sort of an inevitable situation to be in. Do you want to talk me through it, particularly the beginnings? Like, where did the idea come from, and when did it land on you?
Look, I got a phone call from Larry Parr, who's the CEO of TMP, sort of saying, look, there's talk about a Vaxathon, trying to rally people to be involved. I think, I'm not sure who else had turned it down. I'll have that conversation with Larry in due course, because I'm sure, I don't think I was the first phone call or the first producer that was associated with it. I actually know one other, but I won't drop her in it. But I know, she had a lot more sense than I did. He sort of mentioned it. I didn't think much about it. And then sort of late Friday, sort of 8 days out, I think it was about 7:30, sort of got rung by Sunny Ngatai, who'd been working on the project, to say, look, we're good to go here. And I sort of said, oh, okay. And still probably not even in my heart of hearts thinking that it was a real thing. They'd sort of said, look, we got some budget together. And I said, what have you got? And they said, oh, well, we've got an idea that we want to broadcast. Initially it was 12 hours, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And I said, what platforms do you want to broadcast on, and who are the talent you have associated with it? And Sonny said, well, we don't have any platforms and we don't have any talent. And to be fair, we don't, all we know is that we just want to run this event. And I was like, wow, okay, cool. So I got drunk on Friday night to numb the pain. No, I actually had dinner and a couple of beers with a mate, and sort of was telling them, I was like, I might wake up tomorrow and I've got to actually legitimately start to put this thing together. So from about Saturday morning, I was actually... I sort of said to them, look, give me the night to try and put it together in my head. I woke up on Saturday. I was actually on my way to Ruatoria to a Ngāti Porou East Coast rugby game, and sort of stopped in Tolaga Bay, had a coffee, thought it through, and then made about 20 phone calls.
Was this the game that Ma played in the first win?
No, this was the week before. So I was in Tolaga Bay, made about 20 phone calls to different people, put the team together. Firstly, I had to put the kind of production crew together, and central to that was Adrian Sorensen and Stacey Kearns, the producers that worked alongside of me, incredible. And I've said this a couple of times now, but when I rang Adrian and Stacey, who both had been long-time executive producers at Sky, Adrian is at TVNZ. She just executive produced the Paralympics. She was on America's Cup. She was on the Olympics. And when I said to both those girls what the proposition was, neither flinched. And I remember, I've got a massive poker face, Duncan, but these women were like, okay, sweet as, let's do it. And that really, really gave me a level of comfort that, because I kind of, sorry, I know you want to ask some questions, but you kind of have to put the technical piece together first on something like this. You could start with the content side, but I just thought, shit, I've got to secure some platforms and then put together the technical piece to be able to deliver effectively the means of distribution here, right? So once I got those two wahine toa on, then I was able to start to focus in on the content.
Because that is quite interesting to think about where you start with something like this, and it's interesting what you say about wondering where you were on the list. In terms of the person crazy enough to take this on, and ultimately to pull it off. And I think in some ways treating it like live sports, which is where they have, they're used to broadcasting chaotic environments, long durations, so that background at Sky with your producers makes sense in some respects. For for Pango and for you, how far out of your comfort zone were you with this, particularly given the time frame?
To be honest, Duncan, I think I've said this before to you. I want to be involved in the big shit, to do with our country. And I think what drives me is firstly my identity, who I am as a, Ngāti Porou, as a father, and, what can move the dial for my people, what can move the dial for greater Aotearoa. And so I want to be involved, I'm on the board of New Zealand Rugby because of that. That helps sort of fulfill that. I'm on Ngāti Porou Group Holdings, better public media, stronger public media governance group. Those are things that all matter to me. Deep down, I'm a believer that, there is no silver bullet here to a COVID response, but a highly vaccinated population will enable us to actually get back to certain levels of freedom and really be the best country in the world, which I believe we are, the greatest country to live in. And so that kind of was at the core of it. So was I out of my comfort zone? Not really. I produced the telethon for the Christchurch earthquake with Māori TV, so I'd been here before. And when I talked to Stacey and Adi and Adrian, Stace had 13, 14-hour days on the tennis live, or cricket, that's 12 hours or 10 hours or whatever it is, So really, and then, the Olympics is on air for 12 hours. So for both of them, the technical side actually wasn't overly hard. The time frame created a lot of pressure, obviously, Duncan. So, no, not really. And, I think we want to change the world through Māori storytelling. And that was probably one of the overwhelming sort of key things for me, bro, was that we were, because of the short time frame, you didn't kind of have to go through massive network approvals. You'd probably be all watching this going, oh, okay. But you just didn't have time. And we wanted to target 20 to 34-year-olds, Māori and Pacifica. That was the key target demographic. So, getting some younger, fresher faces on air was really an important part of what we were aiming to do.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about some of that sort of network brokering side, but let's just go. Start on
that took some years of my life.
Yeah, because networks don't share. This is not the thing. Yeah. They jealously guard their talent. They would never, they try and pretend it's almost like the other network doesn't exist most of the time. Sometimes you watch the news, and they'll be like, an opinion poll just released. And it's like, that was Three's opinion poll, and you're just presenting it as your own. It's that's the media, right? And so to see that spirit of Māori television, Three, TVNZ, just everyone, and even on our side, every kind of everyone was blogging it. It was a crazy thing to see everyone pitch in. How was brokering that? Because TVNZ felt like they came in a little bit late in some respects.
Yeah, look, it wasn't easy. Because obviously, as you said, I think most most platforms in New Zealand, obviously driven by a commercial remit, so haven't always played well in the sandpit. But overwhelmingly, bro, I was always clear from the get-go that this was a platform agnostic broadcast or stream, and we kind of all had to play nicely together. And when I think about it, you had and then you get messages like so everyone's playing. Once you kind of can convince all of these platforms to come, and so that every 24 hours it was a new platform. It was I think we started with Discovery Māori TV, and then we added TVNZ and Iwi Radio, and then Stuff and New Zealand Herald, and all of these platforms coming online. So, every 24 hours someone new was on, and it was a cause for celebration. And, when I look back, that's probably one of the things I'm most proud of was able to convince all of these different partners to kind of buy into the greater good of actually wanting to get our country vaccination rates up. And if that is the case, then, people, can we play nicely here? And everyone was gracious, bro. No one pushed back, to the point where it was funny. I sort of get a random text. We're about 15 minutes before we go to air, and I get a note from the South Auckland crew who, like, there was quite a few News Hub presenters there, and I get, oh, look, the audio guys only got Sky Sport mics, with the Sky Sport logo on, and I'm like, I don't care. Like, whether you're going to, like, there are greater things for us to worry about right now. And so yeah, look, just incredibly appreciative that everybody saw the bigger picture.
And on that talent side, because that almost is as big as the network thing was to get all kinds of different people on screen, on location, and at Avalon, and to have so many, some you've got a lot of sports people in there, like you just lots of different kinds of people, and it worked like that. That was just a kind of a stunning thing. Like, what, how close were you to that talent brokering kind of element?
Yeah, no. I was probably, in terms of that, the key person. So what we wanted was, we obviously had a target demographic of 20 to 34 and Māori Pacifica. But still wanted to make it broad audience enough. So one of the things I knew early on is we just couldn't go to air with the established kind of presenters. We had to offer something new. We had to offer something different. And to be fair, I kind of knew that was one way of potentially subverting a lot of the criticism about the kind of just the, I think nostalgia can be a strength and a weakness. And I always, when I make a program, I always sort of toy between nostalgia. I know Taika hates nostalgia, and we kind of often have this conversation about it. Having said that, I always say to him, mate, there's shitloads of nostalgia in your films. But yeah. But it can work for you. So I really wanted, the first voice of the broadcast was Sonny, younger, fresher Māori face. He threw to Narelle Sindos. Those were all really considered, well thought through. Narelle is of Greek heritage, and for me, and then we went to, amongst this sort of really cool, younger, fresher talent, we had a couple of uncles in Paddy Gow and Julian Wilcox, who are at the absolute top of the list of people I've worked with. Jules, I've been in the trenches many times over the years. Well, he was probably the second phone call I made. I just sent him a text. I said, hey, what you up to on Saturday? I just sent him a text, up to on Saturday. He said, not much, what's on? I said, 8 hours of live TV for Vaxathon, you got me? He said, sweet, I'm there, Bo.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it was just a couple of texts, and then I'd never worked with Paddy Gow before, but obviously had seen his talent, and look, what a generous man. And, those two, I knew that I had to place them in amongst these younger presenters who were less experienced but have big futures. And, one of the things that made me chuckle the most is I saw a post from Anna Harcourt, who was one of the presenters, who's I think the head of content at RE. She said, I just dipped my toes into live TV for the first time with a wee 8-hour broadcast. And she sort of said to me, I think on the Thursday night, I've never done live TV. I said, don't worry, by the end of it, you would have done more live TV than most people in their lives. So you've got enough time to warm yourself into it. And I think, Duncan, one of the things was, as a production team, we made it a really inclusive environment. We made no auto cue, Duncan. There was no auto cue in Wellington, and we couldn't get one out of Auckland. So, it was a wild ride. And just one sort of other anecdote that I remember is, I think it was on Thursday, or it might have been Wednesday, I was driving out to Avalon, and I was listening to an interview on RNZ. Actually, I was on RNZ, and I was waiting to come on I was waiting to come on to RNZ, and the person before me was actually the executive producer from Telethon back in the days. And we'd sort of been trying to figure out what was the best way to come at this. And they said, the person that was on before me, I forget his name, he said, we only scripted the first hour and then the rest we made up. And I was like, wow, we're on the right track, because that's pretty much all we did as well, which was we actually scripted the first 2 hours and then just rinsed and repeated, because effectively once we were up and we were able to establish connections with the different parts of New Zealand, and then obviously Taika committing and making himself available for the whole 8 hours was a biggie. Duncan, probably arguably our biggest international entertainment name. That kind of changed the dynamic.
We'll just take a quick break and come back with more from Bailey on the Vaxathon. The Fold is brought to you by O Media, making brands unmissable and public spaces better across Aotearoa, with over 4,000 out-of-home advertising sites nationwide across both street furniture and retail centres. I'm super grateful to O Media for enabling us to make unmissable connections with Kiwis.
Ready to rediscover the joys of cycling? With over 300 kilometres of cycle paths across Tāmaki Makaurau, jumping on your bike and going for a ride is such a fun way to discover the city from a different perspective. Cycling is getting more and more popular across Auckland, so now's a great time to join the hype and give cycling a go. Head to at.govt/cycling to find your nearest cycleway today.
So with anything like this, there's and it feels like it was just this kind of roaring success across any metric you care to name.
Let's go there on the negative stuff, bro. Happy to.
Yeah, like what went wrong, or what kind of, what did you learn out of it?
Yeah. For me, I learned that people matter the most, that if you can get the right people in place, it matters the most. What went wrong? Well, not a lot went wrong. Actually, dude, 3 minutes before we go to air, we just we lose comms to everyone. So we've got 5-6 locations around the country. There was no way of communicating to them, and our field producers were having a meltdown. So basically we revert to phones, we've got to get back on the phones and queue everyone in. You're legitimately queuing someone on a phone, so there's a delay. You got 6 phones going on those first crosses, and we were Taika wasn't coming, wasn't connecting properly, and so there was a bit of a technical meltdown, and then suddenly you're in the truck, and then on a monitor up pops Taika in LA, up pops Henny and Miss Kihi in Kaitaia, and your heart just sort of skips a few beats. But so there was some technical issues. I think, and I've seen some of the discourse around some of the opposition politicians not saying that they got a fair shake. I think, and I think about that, and I think, well, one of the things was I was actually pretty conscious not to have any politicians initially and not politicize it. But obviously, when you think about it, you need a certain level of kind of political, might behind it. I was really open to opposition politicians. Personally, I would have been keen on David Seymour. He made himself available. The key issue for me, I think, Duncan, on that was, at a certain point, we had to really hone in and focus in on the target demographic of 20 to 34 and Māori and Pacifica. And, we had to make some pretty brutal decisions and cuts about who could be in or who couldn't be in. And if you look at the areas that we went to, Kaitaia, Rotorua, South Auckland, Porirua, these are all places that are high Māori and Pacifica. And, my view was that if whoever was available wasn't really speaking to that demo, then we had to be quite judicious. And I stand by that because, when you look at the numbers, twice as many Māori as any other day got vaccinated over, the previous record was, I think, 10,000 and we were 21,000. And 20 to 34, I think over 40,000. So, I kind of sit back and I think, wow, I'd love to think we played a role in helping those numbers get there. So.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. You have to focus on what are you intending to do. This isn't a big production, but ultimately it's got a purpose, and that's what you had to focus on. And I think that sense of the Māori and Pacific communities, the energy, the creativity, the Vaxathon was both a television event, but really it was kind of live coverage of a nationwide event that was Super Saturday, which was a very decentralized thing. Communities were given free rein to embrace it, and that's one of the things that I thought was most beautiful. And you really got the sense of the way that those communities embraced it and brought whatever they could to it. I mean, that must have been a beautiful thing to sort of witness from that whatever control booth that you were in with this thing.
I wish I could say that was the case, Duncan. The reality is you're just stressing out and you're just trying to hold your team together. And I'll probably one day, hopefully, with a beer, sit down and try and attempt to watch the 8 hours and maybe see it through different eyes. But, there's just a whole lot of hard work that went into it, and a lot of coffee drunk during the broadcast. And you're trying to manage, and you're talking down the phone to Taika, who wants to take the broadcast in another way. And you're just like, okay, sweet as, so. Yeah, I think. Look, I'd love to say, I think, a large part of it was planned. A large part of it was just an amalgam of all this mayhem, and we got there. So ultimately, pretty stoked.
So I'm conscious that we don't have a lot of time, but do you feel like out the back of this, just the amount of goodwill that you drew on, the way that you had public, private sector, politicians, bureaucrats, they're just everyone threw everything they had into this. Like, it felt like, I wrote about this on Sunday, that there are sort of lessons in sort of a bit of decentralizing and just asking everyone to pitch in, given the scale of this opponent. And is that something that you kind of, as probably the single figure who centralized a lot of that in some ways, that you took away as well?
Yeah, I'm a big believer, bro, that like at a macro level, New Zealand as a country, not Aotearoa, I'll make that distinction, as a country that is born out of this bicultural relationship. We're now a very multicultural country, and that makes us really cool. I love that, right? So if I was then to take that to the next sort of level, to kind of talk about all the groups, all the factions that had to come together to do this, I think that, I am really proud that, look, maybe there's something in there in terms of a blueprint of how we can work together. Often, as you know, this business is so, I won't say evilly drawn on lines, but it is, we do draw lines in regards to who can play together and who can't play together. So I do hope that there is lessons. I'm really proud that we're able to kind of work together here, and just look forward to maybe doing it again. Not so soon and with a bit more runway, but yeah.
You should be proud. It was a pretty special thing, and and I do think that it contains many layers of lessons for this country. I will let you go now. Thank you so much for coming on The Fold, Bailey.
Sweet as both.
That was The Fold, brought to you by our partners at oOh!media, making brands unmissable and public spaces better across Aotearoa. Huge thanks to oOh!media for sponsoring this episode of The Fold and enabling us to make unmissable connections with Kiwis.
Talo for Lover. I'm Madeline Chapman, editor at The Spinoff. If you have the means, consider supporting our high-quality journalism by becoming a Spinoff member. Sign up now at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
The Spinoff Podcast Network.